Here's the entire Fnaf lore in 15 minutes. Buckle up because here we go. Our story starts in the late 1970s to early 1980s with two men, William Afton and Henry Emily. Together, they founded Fazbear's Family Diner, a small pizzeria featuring two animatronic mascots, Fazbear and Spring Bonnie. Now, these weren't just robots. They were spring-lock technology, allowing them to function as both an animatronic and a wearable suit. But we know now this was a terrible idea. These suits were fragile. One wrong move and the lock snapped shut, crushing anything or anyone inside. And they weren't the only danger lurking in this place. One night, Henry Emily's daughter, Charlotte, aka Charlie, was locked outside the pizzeria, and in the darkness, William Afton was waiting. You see, he was a killer, and that's exactly what he did. He killed her, just like that. But her story wasn't over, because Henry had built something inside the diner, a security animatronic called the Puppet. And that night, Charlie's soul merged with the Puppet, creating the first haunted animatronic. This was just the beginning of Afton's horrific legacy. You see, the thing is, Afton grew more bold. At the newly established Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, he used a yellow Spring Bonnie suit to lure 5 children into the back room. One by one, he murdered them, leaving no trace, except for the blood stain soaking in the walls. But as we know now, the past doesn't stay buried. Soon after, the animatronics began acting strangely. That's because the children's souls had possessed them. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy. And the one who remained broken? Golden Freddy, the forever vengeful spirit. And in case you forgot, that's why he always says it's me. Now, shockingly enough, literally this was William's plan from the entire time. He even made a compartment where children would fit perfectly inside of these animatronic suits, hoping to kill them and hide all the evidence inside of these where no one would ever see it coming. However, thanks to the puppet, these children were able to live a new life. However, their spirits were going to be trapped inside of these things forever. Which makes you wonder, why would William even do such a thing? Didn't he have children of his own? Yes, he did. And this is where things get weird. While all this horror was unfolding, Afton had his own family. His youngest son, the crying child, aka Evan, was terrified of the animatronics, and for good reason. And his older brother, the one we call Michael Afton, or the kid with the Foxy mask, bullied him relentlessly, scaring him with a Foxy mask, and then one day, the nightmare became real. At his birthday, Michael and his friends took it too far. They forced him into Fazbear's jaws, laughing, but then the animatronic spring locks failed, and then crunch, the ultimate prank. You just got your brother's head removed from his body. And this was known as the Bite of 83. The boy didn't survive, obviously, but his torment, it never ended. He was trapped in a never-ending nightmare, haunted by monstrous versions of the very thing that killed him, until he finally faded away. Thus, the nightmare animatronics in Fnaf 4, but that's for later. Moving on with the story, with his son dead and the haunted animatronics growing restless, Afton tried to fight back. He returned to Freddy's to destroy the possessed robots, but as he laughed at his victory, he made one fatal mistake. He decided for whatever reason to hide inside the Spring Bonnie suit, thinking he had outsmarted the ghost, but the spring locks failed, and in an instant, his body was crushed inside of the suit. And of course, he became trapped inside, dying, yet unable to move on, and so Springtrap was born. But let me tell you, this man is so crazy that he actually found a way to live on forever, or at least so he thought. When Freddy Fazbear's Pizza shuts down, William comes up with a great idea. He made a business called Afton Robotics, and this is all about killing children. Now, the reason he wanted to kill the children is because they have remnant. Now, remnant is the term for physical manifestation of memories infused with and possessing inanimate objects, making it a driving force behind the paranormal occurrences in the animatronics, besides the spirits themselves, aka he was going to kill kids, take the remnant, and then use it to live on forever. And this is exactly how all the children and Charlie were able to possess an animatronic. And this man is so horrific that he decided to come up with Circus Baby, an animatronic specifically used to lure children in, with games, toys, and ice cream. And with no evidence at that, as she would literally crush them, suck them into her stomach, and they'll never be found again. Now, let me introduce you a new character, Elizabeth Afton, the daughter of William Afton and the sister of Michael Afton, and would have been Evan, but his head got ripped off, who trusted her father and held a deep fascination with these creatures, and especially Circus Baby, until the machine captured her and killed her, which allowed Elizabeth to possess it. And because of this, the Circus Baby's Pizza World gets closed down, and they report it as gas leaks being the reason. But the only gas coming out of this place is the stench coming out of Elizabeth's body, reeking from Circus Baby. And this is where you would think all this would end. However, William decided to leave all the animatronics open for rental. And that's where the set of Sister Location takes place, as Circus Baby's entertainment and rentals. Now, you play as Michael Afton, Yes, William Afton's son, who takes the job here for one reason, to find someone, but he doesn't realize he's walking into a trap just yet. The facility is home to 4 main animatronics, each one more terrifying than the last. Circus Baby, Ballora, Funtime Freddy, equipped with Bonbon as the hand puppet, and Funtime Foxy. But the focus is on Circus Baby, as we know she's been taken over by someone we know, and that's Elizabeth Afton, obviously Michael's sister. And let's just say she has a plan, but Michael, he has no idea what's coming for him. Michael spends 5 nights trying to survive the horrors of the facility, guided by Baby's voice, but everything is a setup. On night 2, he's forced to fix Funtime Freddy, while avoiding Bonbon's deadly jump scares. Night 3, he sneaks past Ballora, staying silent so she doesn't hear him. And around night 4, that's when things start to get really weird, as he literally wakes up inside of a spring-locked suit, trapped as mini-Renas try to kill him. And then finally, night 5, he reaches the scooping room, and that's when the truth is revealed. You see, the scooping room is where broken animatronics are torn apart from the inside, but tonight, it's not for the animatronics, it's for Michael. All along, Baby had a plan to escape, but she couldn't do it alone, so she tricked Michael into coming here. Every animatronic in the facility had already been melted down and fused together into one monstrous being, and that was Ennard. And that's right, you guessed it, they needed a human body, so they scoop Michael's insides out and crawl inside of his skin. Pretty terrifying, right? And believe it or not, at first it worked. Ennard walked out disguised as Michael, but his body started to rot away and the animatronic pieces had to escape. And so, Ennard decided to jump into the sewer like he was it, leaving what was left of Michael's body rotting on the sidewalk. And yet, just as Fnaf does, Michael somehow didn't die. He stood back up and his skin was purple, his eyes were glowing, and with one goal in mind, he muttered, "Father, I will find you." Because now, Michael Afton is going to be hunting his own father. Speaking of his father, whatever happened to him? Well, it's been 30 years since the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closed, and the urban legends, the ghost stories, they've become nothing more than myths. But then, someone decided to turn those stories into a real-life horror attraction, thus for opening a place called Fazbear Frights. And you see, the idea was genius. Recreate the terrifying mystery of Freddy's, and then use the old props and salvaged items for the abandoned location. But on night 2, they found something really weird, something they should have left buried. Hidden inside of the restaurant, they discovered an old rotting animatronic suit. At first, it seemed like a great addition to the attraction, but they didn't realize there was something inside of it. That animatronic suit wasn't just any relic, it was Springtrap, and inside it, William Afton himself. As we know now, that decades earlier, William Afton was trapped inside of this thing. And thus, the real fun begins, as unlike the past games, there's no multiple animatronics hunting you down. There's only going to be one, and unlike before, this animatronic isn't possessed by a child seeking revenge. This one is controlled by a literal serial killer, and he's really intelligent. He hides in the shadows, moves when you're not looking, and hunts you down like prey. Your only defense is sound cues and a failing security system. However, this whole ordeal doesn't last long, as after 5 nights the nightmare ends. The entire attraction burns to the ground, and with it, Springtrap is seemingly destroyed. But was it an accident or was it intentional? As of right now, we still don't know. But in a secret minigame, the spirits of the murdered children finally find peace. Freed from their torment, they decide to finally move on. But what about Afton? The building burned, but Afton, he still survived. His nightmare was far from over. And speaking of nightmares, remember Ennard? Well, somehow Circus Baby was able to eject herself from his body. And as she pieces herself back together, she forms Scrap Baby. You know that molten creature that you see in FNAF Security Breach? Well, that was actually Ennard. But now, he's Molten Freddy. Boy, this is getting confusing. But we need to go back to one more character. We have to go all the way back to the beginning of the story, but William's business partner Henry has a big part in FNAF 6. You see, it's actually Henry who's going to make all of this right. He opens up a new location under the Freddy Fazbear name, and you start the game thinking you're running a normal pizza restaurant. You design your own pizzas, buy arcade machines, and most importantly, salvage old animatronics that show up in the alleyway outside. But here's the twist. This isn't a real pizzeria, it's a trap. You're not here to serve pizza, you're here to lure something inside. And you see, after years of tragedy, Henry finally saw the truth. Freddy's was a curse, a place haunted by the souls of innocent children, and so he made a plan. He built this pizzeria as a trap, a place where all the lingering souls, Baby, the puppet, Molten Freddy, and William Afton, could be lured in and destroyed once and for all. And ironically, he actually ended up hiring Michael Afton as the security guard. But sadly for him, once everybody was inside, he set the building on fire. No more games, no more horror stories, only fire. And Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria burned one final time, and Henry accepted his fate, going down with the building. And at the time, this provided all FNAF fans with some closure. The souls of the animatronics were finally freed, and Henry was able to make right what he did so wrong in the past. And William Afton was finally out of the picture. Or was he? Spoiler alert, he always comes back. Fast forward to Fnaf Help Wanted. This is where things get crazy, as you're welcome to Freddy Fazbear's virtual experience, the latest and greatest cutting-edge way to relive all the terrifying stories of Fazbear Entertainment's history. Now, this is just supposed to be a game, but things feel a little weird. At first, he's just a flicker, a glitch, but the longer you play, the closer he gets, until finally, it isn't just a bug anymore. This thing is in the game, and that thing is a glitch trap, a digital ghost and a fragment of William Afton, the man who refused to die. He literally uploaded himself as binary code into this game, and if you're not careful, he'll end up inside of you. Pause. However, that's how he ends up inside of Vanessa, who eventually becomes Vanny. The whole game he was plotting this. Now we need to fast forward even farther. And just bear with me, guys, because Scott no longer is running these games. It actually got taken over by the company Steel Wool, so there might be some plot holes. However, sometime after Help Wanted, Fnaf Pizzaplex was created, and it sported some of the most amazing looking animatronics we've seen yet. Glamrock Freddy, Glamrock Chica, Roxanne Wolf, and of course Montgomery Gator. You know what's the crazy thing? These animatronics are also somehow possessed by Afton, except for Glamrock Freddy, as he malfunctions right when the game begins. On one particular night, a young boy named Gregory finds himself trapped inside after hours, with security systems only locking down the Glamrock Freddy. He's the only animatronic who's not hostile towards him, as you realize throughout the game that Roxanne Wolf, Montgomery Gator, Glamrock Chica have all been hacked or corrupted, relentlessly hunting him. And even worse, Vanny is back. But that's not even the craziest part. Deep underground in a forgotten section of the Pizzaplex, Afton is still alive in a new form, and he's called Burn Trap. Basically just a charred, decayed version of the Springtrap bodysuit that we saw before Fnaf 6. And what a shocker, despite being burned alive multiple times, he refuses to die. And he lurks in the depths waiting for the right moment to take control once more. His influence seems to be tied to Vanny, who, as we know, is manipulated into carrying out his sinister plans. And there's actually multiple endings to this game, but the one that we decided was canon is this one. When we finally find William Afton at the bottom of the pizzeria, along with this horrific creation called the Blob, just as a mix of all the animatronics up to this point. After a huge fight between our protagonist and Burn Trap, we're able to burn the entire building down, which I don't know why, because it never works. But as Glamrock Freddy and Gregory try to escape, the Blob snatches up William Afton once again. But if you ask me, I don't think this is the canon ending. My opinion, the canon ending is actually the Princess Quest ending. Vanny is finally freed from William Afton's control, and we take Glamrock Freddy's head with us. That's why we see a headless version of him in FNAF Security Breach Ruin. And speaking of which, this is actually the DLC for FNAF Security Breach, where we play as a young girl named Cassie, who's searching for her missing best friend Gregory. Yep, the same one from the first game. She gets lured to this place after receiving a message from Gregory over her communicator, begging her to come find him. Finds a Vanny mask in order to explore this place a little deeper, and uncovering new horrors along the way, including all the wrecked animatronics that Gregory left behind. As she descends deeper into the quote-unquote ruins, she discovers the truth behind the Pizzaplex's collapse. There's now an AI security system known as the MXES. Seems to be preventing her from doing something much worse, but she doesn't know that until the end. Eventually, Cassie finds Gregory's location, or so she thinks. And in order to get to it, she has to shut down this MXES. But right after this thing shuts down, she realizes she's been tricked, as Gregory's voice was fake the whole time. She was actually lured in by a manipulating system known as the Mimic, which she eventually sets free now that the MXES is out of the picture. This was the thing's plan the whole time. Come to find out, this thing actually might be more horrific than William Afton ever could be, thus revealing the new horrifying plot twist, and that's the Mimic. We get a better idea of the whole FNAF Security Breach plot when we play Help Wanted 2, which many people believe that you play as Cassie's dad throughout the entirety of the game. It also gives you a cool backstory of exactly how everything happened. There's a crazy ending that seems to tie everything together, where the same recharge station that Glamrock Freddy gets into in FNAF Security Breach pops up and a hand emerges from it. Presumably, you would think this is Cassie's hand. Her security bots seem to take you out of that vision, but when you awaken, you see a POV of you as the help bot handing Cassie the Vanny mask, which is an interesting tie by Steel Wool. I don't think it's any coincidence to prove that this is Cassie's father, as there's multiple references in the game where they talk about him having children. But let's talk about the Mimic for a second, seeing as the new game is going to literally be the secrets of the Mimic. The Mimic is a horrible creature created by Edwin Murray, who decided to create this creature in order to look after his son since he was so busy. It was able to adapt and learn from its surroundings. But we all know things go terribly wrong, and eventually the Mimic kills everybody in sight and somehow ended up at the bottom of the Pizzaplex until Cassie released it. Which, not really her fault. She was just trying to save her best friend after all, but on the way up from the elevator, the Mimic crashes it down, and now he's out in the free world. And he, in my opinion, is so much worse than William Afton. Even though William can't die, this guy is out for havoc, and he's more intelligent than anyone else around him. So I'm glad that Steel Wool actually came out with a backstory for this exact character, which is going to turn this franchise into a whole mess, but in reality, it might actually save it, as the Mimic is one of the most compelling characters that we've seen yet this far in FNAF. And And trust me, this story is far from over. We have so many loose ends that still need to be covered up, but hey, that was the FNAF lore in 15 minutes. If you think I missed anything, go ahead and comment down below. Peace out!